What if I told you that your exhaustion isn't a personal failure? It is a design, that the guilt you feel when you rest, the anxiety when you're offline, the quiet dread that maybe you're not doing enough. None of that is accidental. You've been trained to feel that way. And the worst part? They made it look like freedom. We were promised connection. We got performance. We were told we could be anything, as long as we never stopped proving it. Every app you open, every goal you chase, every version of your best self you've been trying to become, they all come from the same lie, that more will finally make you feel whole. But what if the real freedom isn't a T in having more, it's S in needing less? This video is not just another self-help pep talk. It's a dismantling, a soft, fierce rebellion against the noise that's stealing your time, your peace, your presence. We'll unpack the invisible trap behind your need to optimize everything. We'll talk about the loneliness nobody wants to admit. We'll expose the cruel optimism that keeps you striving, but never arriving. And we'll begin to explore what it really means to live, not just perform. You've felt it, haven't you? That quiet voice under all the chaos asking, "Is this it? Stay with me." Because by the end of this video, you want to just understand why you feel so tired all the time. You'll finally know what to do with that feeling. Take a breath. Close your eyes for a second and ask yourself this. When was the last time you did something, anything, just for the sake of it? Not to document it, not to use it as content, not because it helped you grow or perform better, but simply because it filled your heart? Most people struggle to answer that, and it's not because they're lazy or uninspired. It's because the culture we live in has slowly, and almost invisibly, replaced joy with productivity. Particularly in countries like the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, the idea of living well has been hijacked by the language of efficiency and performance. We've turned our lives into spreadsheets. Every action needs to be justified, every moment monetized. Under this system, value isn't about who you are, it's about what you can produce. And that idea? It's not freedom, it's a cleverly disguised prison. This is the world of the entrepreneur of the self, a concept Byung-Chul Han introduced that has never felt more relevant. It is not just an academic theory, it is the way most of us are living. We wake up and start working on ourselves, not in a gentle, self-loving way, but with the urgency of someone running out of time. The gym isn't just for health, it's for aesthetics. Reading isn't for pleasure, it's to be well-informed. Even meditation is tracked by apps, ranked by streaks, posted as humble brags. It's as if every part of us has been absorbed into the machinery of capitalism, where the body is a factory, the mind a marketing tool, and rest is an inconvenient inefficiency. What was once the language of corporations, branding, scaling, optimizing, is now the language of the individual. We've been reprogrammed to think of ourselves as businesses and success as visibility. But who profits when your entire identity becomes a product? Let me tell you about Lisa. She's 29, lives in Toronto, and teaches high school English. She also runs a YouTube channel on productivity, freelances as a content writer, and posts weekly wellness tips on Instagram. She's articulate, driven, and exhausted. When we talked, she told me something that stuck. If I don't keep posting, I feel like I'm disappearing. That phrase, disappearing, hit hard. Because it's not just Lisa. It's a generational echo. Visibility has become a form of existence. To be seen is to be validated. To pause is to vanish. And the pressure to keep showing up, keep producing, keep staying relevant, it's breaking people in ways they can't even articulate. And the cruelest part? They think it's their fault. That they're not disciplined enough, not focused enough, not optimized enough. As if burnout were a personal failure instead of a systemic one. The real danger of this mindset isn't just exhaustion. it as the loss of self. When you treat every moment as an investment and every action as an asset, you stop experiencing life as it happens. A walk becomes a step count. A sunset becomes a background for content. A conversation becomes a networking opportunity. Even your emotions start getting filtered. Is this pain useful? Is this joy shareable? You become so used to curating that you forget how to simply feel. The capitalist system we inhabit doesn't just want your time, it wants your identity. And it knows that the best way to extract it is to convince you that your self-worth depends on how productive you are. You don't need a boss to exploit you when you're already doing it to yourself. And worst of all, you might even feel proud of it. This internalized capitalism isn't just a psychological burden, it's a spiritual one. It strips away the mystery of existence and replaces it with metrics. Meaning becomes measurable. Love becomes a relationship milestone. Personal growth becomes a set of SMART goals. We've turned life into a business plan, and in doing so, we've flattened the richness of the human experience into a cycle of optimization and control. Even leisure is repackaged into self-care, which, let's be honest, has become just another industry. You're not really relaxing if your face mask isn't tea organic and your bath isn't tea lit with influencer-approved candles. And heaven forbid you forget to share it. The quiet parts of life, solitude, slowness, surrender, have become suspect because they don't produce, they don't scale. Yet beneath all this performance, there's a quiet hunger emerging. A longing not for more, but for less, for space, for stillness, for meaning that isn't contingent on visibility. People are beginning to feel that something is deeply off. They're tired of building personal brands, tired of presenting curated versions of themselves, tired of working every waking moment to be enough. Movements like digital minimalism, slow living, and the rejection of hustle culture are gaining traction, not because they're trendy, but because they speak to a deep inner weariness. It's the kind of fatigue that a new app or productivity hack won't fix. Because it's not about efficiency, it's about coming home to ourselves. But make no mistake, breaking out of this system is hard. It means questioning the very things we've been taught to aspire to. It means valuing presence over performance, relationships over reach, integrity over aesthetics. It's not sexy. It won't go viral. And that's the point. The healing happens in the shadows, in the small choices, in the moments you choose not to perform, the ones where you stop striving and just exist. It's uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. But it's also where freedom begins. True freedom. Not the kind sold by self-help influencers, but the kind that doesn't require an audience. And yet, before we can fully understand how deep this conditioning goes, we need to examine another layer of the trap, the one that lives in your pocket, vibrates in your hand, and measures your worth in likes. Because the world of social media isn't just where you perform, it's where you compare. And that comparison, my friend, is silently eating away at your soul. Let's talk about that next. You open your phone, just for a moment, maybe to check the time or clear a notification, and within seconds, you're surrounded by the lives of others. Someone's morning workout, someone's career win, someone's glowing skin under perfect lighting. You weren't looking for comparison, but it found you anyway. And now you're wondering, consciously or not, if you're falling behind. That's how it starts. Social media doesn't scream at you. It whispers, it nibbles, it layers itself onto your self-esteem, one scroll at a time. You were never meant to compare yourself to thousands of people in a single morning. And yet, here we are, quietly overwhelmed, but afraid to look away. Because what if we miss something? What if our silence makes us invisible? It's the paradox of being always connected and feeling completely alone. It's wild when you think about it. The promise of social media was so beautiful. Connection, community, belonging. No matter where you were, you could find your tribe. And yes, in some ways, that promise has delivered. Long-lost friends found each other. People with rare illnesses built networks of support. Art, activism, and stories crossed oceans. But something darker crept in alongside that light. Algorithms began shaping our desires. Validation became addictive. And suddenly, connection wasn't about depth. It was about reach. Engagement became the new intimacy. Presence was replaced by visibility. And in trying so hard to be seen, we forgot how to actually be with one another. We perform instead of participate. We broadcast instead of bond. And in that shift, loneliness bloomed, quietly, pervasively, globally. Let me introduce you to Emma. She's 22, lives in Sydney, and her online life is immaculate. She posts clean, cozy aesthetics, productivity tips, soft girl morning routines. Thousands follow her, praise her, save her content. But when I asked her who she would call if she were having a panic attack at 2 a.m., she paused. "I don't know," she whispered. "I guess no one, really." That moment says everything. Social media gives the illusion of closeness, but often it's a stage with no audience when the lights go off. Emma is not alone in this. I've met dozens, hundreds, of people who've mastered the art of curation, but are starving for real conversation. They've got followers, but no one to confide in. They're visible, but not known. And that hurts in a way that's hard to admit. The more we scroll, the more distorted our sense of self becomes. Everyone seems more attractive, more successful, more fulfilled. And if we're not keeping up, we assume it's our fault. So we turn to optimization. We wake up earlier, we journal more, we meditate harder, we read all the books and download all the apps. We chase a version of ourselves that's always just out of reach. But here's the cruel trick. That ideal isn't real. It's an algorithmic composite of influencers, ads, and digital filters. A collage of half-truths and perfected fragments. And when we fail to live up to it, which we inevitably do, we internalize that failure. I'm not enough. I need to try harder. Maybe if I just fixed one more thing. And so the cycle continues. We optimize ourselves into oblivion, but there's a deeper layer here, something more painful and often unspoken. It's the shame that comes with loneliness. We don't talk about it much, because in today's world, loneliness feels like a personal flaw. How could you possibly be lonely when you have Wi-Fi and followers and DMs and group chats? But loneliness isn't about the presence of people. It's about the absence of connection. It's eating dinner next to someone who's on their phone the whole time. It's sending LOL while crying. It's watching your own life through your screen like a stranger. And when that loneliness settles in, it doesn't just make you sad. It changes the way you see yourself. You start believing that maybe you're hard to love. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe silence means rejection. And all the while, the platforms profit. Not just financially, emotionally, because they've trained us to seek comfort in the very thing that harms us. Feeling anxious? Scroll. Feeling bored? Refresh. Feeling lonely? Post. But what happens when those dopamine hits stop working? What happens when you've posted the photo, gotten the likes, and still feel hollow? That's the question few are willing to face, because it requires stepping off the stage, slowing down, being with yourself. And in a world that values performance above all else, being with yourself, truly, nakedly, without distraction, can feel like death. But it's also the beginning of something softer, something real. Here's what we rarely hear. Loneliness isn't cured by more content. It's healed by connection, the kind that doesn't fit in a caption, the kind that listens instead of likes, that sees you on your worst days, that doesn't care about your feed. Real relationships take time. They're messy, unfiltered, and they ask for presence, something the modern world has nearly convinced us we can live without. But you can't optimize your way into love. You can't filter your way into belonging. What you can do is slow down. Put down your phone. Send that voice message. Ask someone how they really are, and mean it. Yes, it's scary. But it's the only way out of this beautiful, deadly illusion. And yet, even when we recognize the harm, even when we crave something different, many of us stay locked in. Because at the heart of all this performance is a quiet belief that if we just keep trying, keep striving, keep doing everything right, we'll finally arrive. Finally feel safe, whole, loved. That belief is seductive, powerful, and deeply, tragically false. It's what philosopher Lauren Berlant calls cruel optimism, a hope so tightly bound to suffering that to let it go feels like giving up. But to hold on to it means slowly disappearing. And if that resonates with you, then you're ready for the next truth. There's a peculiar kind of hope that doesn't lift you. It drains you. A hope that whispers, just hang on a little longer, while quietly dragging you deeper into dissatisfaction. You've felt it, haven't you? That pull toward the version of life you were supposed to have by now. Maybe it's the stable job with a 6-figure salary, the dream partner, the clean home, optimized mornings, skincare routine, bulletproof confidence. It's sold everywhere, through influencers, coaches, podcasts, and brands that promise transformation. And so you keep reaching. You keep believing in yourself. But something feels off. No matter how hard you try, the reward never quite arrives. This is what philosopher Lauren Berlant called cruel optimism, the attachment to something you believe will save you, even though it's precisely what's hurting you. What makes it cruel isn't just that the fantasy is unreachable. It is that the fantasy itself is manufactured to keep you striving. You believe in it because to not believe feels like failure. You were told hard work would bring security, that self-love would bring partnership, that buying the right course, journal, or morning routine would make your life click into place. But none of it guarantees peace. In fact, it often does the opposite. You're left burnt out, anxious, disappointed, and blaming yourself. Because the fantasy doesn't break. You do. And that's how the system protects itself. By making your pain feel like personal weakness instead of systemic design. You weren't lazy. You weren't broken. You were promised a version of life that never existed. Take Josh, for example, a 34-year-old freelance designer from New York. He works 7 days a week, follows all the right gurus, journals nightly, and reads books on grit and resilience. He's doing everything right. But he's miserable. He confided in me. I feel like I'm living someone else's dream, and I can't wake up. That is the haunting part of cruel optimism. It convinces you that dissatisfaction is just a sign you haven't done enough yet. So you double down. You upgrade the system. New app, new diet, new job title. You don't abandon the fantasy. You chase it harder. Until eventually, your body gives out. Or your spirit does. And no one tells you that it's okay to stop chasing. That it's okay to let the dream go and build something slower, softer, more human. Cruel optimism often looks harmless on the surface. A Pinterest board, a wellness plan, a career vision. But what it really creates is a chronic state of inadequacy. You always feel almost there, almost successful, almost attractive, almost happy. This emotional not quite space becomes your default. And over time, it rewires your brain. Rest becomes guilt. Contentment becomes complacency. Joy becomes suspicious. And presence? It's replaced with preparation. Always prepping for the future. Always preparing to be the person who deserves the life you dream about. But what if that preparation never ends? What if the finish line was never real? Just a moving target, conveniently placed out of reach. It's easy to miss how deep this goes, because cruel optimism doesn't shout. It sings, softly, through motivational quotes. through minimalist YouTube videos that promise peace in 10 steps, through lifestyle brands that blend spirituality with consumption. You deserve more, they say. But underneath it all is a command. You are not enough. Yet. And because it's disguised as empowerment, we drink it in. We repost it. We build our identities around it. But no one talks about the heartbreak of chasing something you can't name. The grief of waking up after years of self-help and realizing you still feel lost, still disconnected, still waiting. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. Letting go of cruel optimism feels like failure. That's why so few people do it. It feels like betrayal of your younger self, your culture, your ambitions. You feel like you're giving up on becoming the best version of you. But in truth, what you're releasing is the fantasy that told you you needed fixing in the first place. You're not giving up. You're waking up. Waking up to the possibility that maybe the life you have right now, imperfect and quiet as it is enough to begin again. Without performance. Without pressure. Just presence. Letting go also requires grief. Because when you drop the fantasy, you confront the reality. And sometimes that reality is painful. It means admitting the system isn't fair, that hard work doesn't guarantee security, that being a good person doesn't ensure love. But it also creates space. Real, breathable space. The kind where new, honest dreams can take root. Where relationships aren't built on projection, but on truth. Where rest isn't earned, but allowed. That's the quiet revolution. Not in chasing better, but in redefining enough. It's radical. It's emotional. And yes, it's deeply uncomfortable. But before you can fully rewrite the story, you need to understand why this fantasy became so addictive in the first place. Why you clung to the hustle, the self-branding, the pursuit of perfection. Because the root of cruel optimism isn't just cultural, it's personal. It's embedded in how we define freedom. And that illusion of freedom? It didn't come from nowhere. It was sold to us, strategically, persuasively, by something much bigger than lifestyle trends. If you really want to break the cycle, we have to go deeper into the ideology that made all of this seem normal. That's where we go next. There's this strange tension that creeps in the moment we stop moving, like an itch in the back of the mind. You finally decide to rest, maybe sit with a book, lie down for a moment, or just do absolutely nothing. And within minutes, there it is. Guilt. You start hearing that internal voice, the one that sounds a lot like urgency. You should be doing something useful. This time could be productive. Others are probably working right now. You don't choose these thoughts. They arrive, uninvited, baked into the culture you've grown up in. Somewhere along the line, you were taught that rest is indulgent, that slowing down means falling behind, and that if you're not constantly building, climbing, learning, or improving, you're wasting your life. That message didn't come from nowhere. It was whispered into you by a society that measures value in output and has no room for stillness. We've been conditioned to believe that being busy is the same as being worthy, that full calendars and long to-do lists are signs of importance. That success is a pace, and that pace is relentless. So we fill our days, we optimize every hour, we wake up early to win the morning, fill commutes with productivity podcasts, and check email while eating dinner. And when we finally stop, even briefly, that silence feels uncomfortable, unnatural, like a void that needs filling. Not because silence is bad, but because we've lost the ability to just be. Somewhere along the way, the question, "How are you?" became synonymous with, "What are you working on?" And when the answer is nothing, it feels like a confession. But why does nothing feel like failure? Let's talk about Marcus. He's 41, works in tech, and has what most people would call a stable life. Good income, flexible hours, a home office that's nicer than most cafes. but weekends are his torment. The moment he tries to slow down, a kind of phantom stress creeps in. The feeling that something is being neglected. Not a task exactly, but a sense of self tied to performance. One weekend, his wife planned a picnic in the park. He came, sat under the tree, and answered Slack messages between bites. Not because anyone told him to, but because resting felt dangerous. That's how deep this trap runs. When your identity is built on being useful, pausing feels like erasing yourself. This isn't just about long work hours. It's deeper than that. It's about a belief system that has taught us to monetize everything, even rest. Think about how many people now optimize their sleep, tracking it, scoring it, turning it into data. Or how wellness routines have become goal-oriented tasks, complete with timers, metrics, and social sharing. Even healing has a schedule now. You're not just meditating, you're meditating correctly. You're not just walking, you're hitting your steps. The body becomes a project, the soul, a side hustle. And leisure is no longer something you feel, it's something you perform. This isn't rest, it's just work wearing softer clothes. And the scariest part? We applaud this, we reward it. We admire people who are always on, who juggle 12 things, who sleep 4 hours and call it discipline. We repost grind quotes and romanticize overwork with aesthetics. But slowly, we're breaking. Our nervous systems are overstimulated. Our minds are racing when we try to sleep. We eat with screens, rest with guilt, and call exhaustion a lifestyle. And yet, the alternative, real rest, deep rest, still feels radical. Why? Because it goes against everything we've been taught. Rest isn't just about stopping activity. It's about trusting that you are enough even when you do nothing at all. Rest is not a reward. It's not the dessert you get after devouring your responsibilities. It's oxygen. It's where your mind recalibrates, where your heart processes what it's been carrying, where your body says, "Thank you for listening." And yet, when was the last time you rested without guilt? Took a nap without justification? Watched the sky change without posting it? That guilt you feel? It doesn't come from laziness. It comes from a society that's forgotten how to value slowness. But here's the quiet truth. Nothing meaningful happens without space. Without rest, we become efficient, yes, but disconnected, productive, but hollow. And a life that's always full can still feel profoundly empty. We must begin to see rest not as absence, but as presence, as a choice to be whole again. It's not just for burnout recovery. It's for creativity, connection, and clarity. It's where you notice what your body's been saying for weeks, where emotions you've ignored finally speak, where real ideas, the kind that don't come from pressure, finally breathe. Rest brings you back to yourself. And for many of us, that's terrifying. Because we've spent so long proving, performing, and projecting that we don't know what's left when we're not on. But that space, the one we fear, that's where healing begins. Still, even as we try to reclaim our right to slow down, we face another challenge. What do we do with the silence that rest creates? What do we build when we stop chasing? For many, the answer lies in subtraction, in the gentle, deliberate practice of living with less. Not just fewer things, but fewer expectations, fewer roles, fewer obligations that no longer serve. That shift has a name, and though it's often misunderstood, it holds the seeds of a quieter revolution. Let's talk about that next. There comes a point, and maybe you've already felt it, when more stops feeling like freedom and starts to feel like suffocation. When every new purchase, every added commitment, every upgrade doesn't add meaning, but subtracts it. It's subtle at first. You look around and realize you have more things than you need, more notifications than you can answer, more goals than you can name, and yet, less satisfaction, less clarity, less presence. That's when the thought creeps in. Maybe more was never the answer. Maybe it's the question itself that's broken. In a world constantly shouting, add, scale, maximize, choosing less becomes a radical act, not because it's easy, but because it's honest. Minimalism in its truest form isn't an aesthetic. It's a way of saying, I refuse to let my life be defined by accumulation. You see it everywhere. This compulsion to chase bigger homes, better tech, faster lifestyles. We collect not only objects, but identities, roles, digital trophies. And with each layer, life gets noisier. But silence? That's where we begin to feel again. Where we remember what actually matters. And here it's the quiet truth that most people miss. Abundance isn't found in having everything. It's found in needing less. Think about it. The best conversations rarely need a stage. The most peaceful moments aren't shared. They're lived. The richest people I know aren't the ones with the most things. They're the ones with the most space. Space to breathe. To rest. To think. Space between thoughts. Between appointments. Between the noise. Let's talk about June, a 38-year-old marketing director in Manchester. She had the designer wardrobe, the smart home, the meal subscriptions, the standing desk. But she was burnt out. I was living efficiently, she told me, but not deeply. One weekend, she turned off her phone, cleared her calendar, then, little by little, started giving things away. Clothes, gadgets, furniture. Not because they were bad, but because they were loud. She called it making room for silence. Today, she lives in a smaller flat, owns fewer things, but describes herself as finally able to breathe. That's what minimalism offers. Not emptiness, but intention. It asks, what are you making room for? And in a world obsessed with storage, that question is revolutionary. The clutter isn't just in your home. It's in your thoughts, your habits, your digital spaces. Most people carry more than they know. Inboxes with 5,000 unread emails, to-do lists that never end, emotional weight from things they no longer remember agreeing to. Minimalism invites us to release the invisible as much as the visible. To ask, is this helping me be who I want to be? That's the difference between consumption and clarity. The first numbs, the second awakens. And when you begin to strip away the non-essential, something unexpected happens. You start seeing yourself again, not the polished, posted, optimized version, but the quieter self, the one that doesn't need applause to feel real. This isn't about deprivation. It's not about counting socks or eating from gray ceramic bowls. That's surface-level minimalism, the kind that fits nicely on Instagram. The deeper kind? It's about boundaries. It's about reclaiming your attention, your time, your energy. Saying no to the extra meeting so you can say yes to a walk. Deleting an app so your mind can breathe. Letting go of status objects so you can feel at home in your skin again. That kind of minimalism doesn't sell well because it can't be branded, but it heals because it makes space, and space is what most of us are truly starving for. Of course, choosing less goes against everything we've been taught. You'll be told you're boring, that you're missing out, that slowing down is failure. But here's the twist. You'll feel more alive than ever, more present, more connected. Minimalism is often portrayed as cold or sterile, but in reality, it's incredibly warm. Because when you remove the unnecessary, what's left is more time for people, more depth in conversations, more beauty in the ordinary. You begin to notice the way light falls on your floor in the afternoon. You laugh more. You eat slower. You cry when the moment calls for it. And none of it has to be shared or monetized. It just is. Minimalism doesn't mean you stop dreaming. It means you stop outsourcing your dreams to the marketplace. You stop letting others tell you what happiness should look like. You stop collecting and start creating. You begin living not for the story you can post, but for the story you can feel in your chest. You learn to sit with yourself, to trust yourself. And maybe, for the first time in years, to truly listen. Because now the noise is gone. The pace has shifted. And what you hear is something deeper. A clarity that no amount of more could ever give you. But to live this way, to really choose less, you must first confront one of the most dangerous illusions of our time. That freedom means limitless choice. That real liberation lies in having it all. Because if you've ever had it all and still felt empty, then you already know. That story doesn't end the way it promises. The next truth is harder. It's about the kind of freedom we've been sold, and who's really benefiting from that illusion. Let's open that door now. So now the question is yours to hold. What are you still clinging to? That deep down, you know is making you small? What have you been told to chase, perfect, or prove? That might be the very thing standing between you and peace. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to face yourself, honestly, gently, without all the noise. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you can stop trying to be a brand and just be a person again. Because no, you're not lazy. You're not broken. You're tired of living a life built for someone else's idea of success. And the moment you stop performing, something softer begins to bloom. Presence. Clarity. Enough. So pause. Breathe. And ask yourself, if I stop chasing, what kind of life could I start building? If this video stirred something in you, if it helped name a feeling you didn't have words for, then this space is for you. Here, we explore life beneath the surface, the truth behind the noise, and how to live fully, with less. Subscribe, turn on the bell. And next time your feed tries to tell you who you should be, come back here. We'll remember who you really are, together.